Welcome to the Leading Ladies Live, where we empower women worldwide and, sometimes the gentlemen with thought-provoking content and interview. I'm your host, Renee L. Paige, and this is my co-host, Andrea L. Reid. Tonight, we're going to do something a little bit... So tonight, we don't have a guest, but we're just going to talk about a topic that is very just dear, that I think that everyone needs to know about, and it's about health. And I know that I am guilty of it, and you'll notice that I keep looking down at my phone, but which is fun. So pretty much we're gonna talk about Andrea's book, Treasured by God, and that's gonna lead into our topic. And I found this article about Chadwick Boseman death, and it tells us about workplace healthcare. So Andrea, can you reiterate it and just go back over your book, and then we can lead into how that correlates with Chadwick Boseman's, please?
Sure. So the name of my book is Treasured by God. It really is about my personal walk, my relationship with God, and how He speaks to me in different ways, mainly in dreams and visions. I'll talk about that in chapter 3. But as it pertains to the subject at hand, chapter 5 deals with my best friend. His name was George Pettis. And he passed away 5 years ago this month. So the 27th of this month will make 5 years that he has passed on, which is kind of hard to grasp because it seemed like it just happened. Like, I can't believe it's 5 years already. But in terms of the health crisis, my best friend did not take care of his health. And I talk about it in the book. He told me when he was 30 years old that he had not had a physical since high school. And it blew my mind because I met him working. We were working together. And so for you to tell me at 30 that the last time you had a checkup was when you were still in high school, it scared me because I was like, we had good medical benefits. So I was like, I'm not understanding why you're not getting checked out. And so in the course of our friendship, he basically would tell me about different ailments that he was, different aches and pains, and he would just brush it off. I would say to him, you probably need to go get that checked out. And he'd be like, no, I'll be okay. And blah, blah, blah. And then back in, I think it was like I have to go back in the book and see what year it was, but it was like the late 90s when he was rushed to the hospital because he was in renal failure. So his kidneys were pretty much gone. And over the course of time, because he went into renal failure, then I talk about how he had to deal with dialysis 3 times a week and how that impacted his body, where he seemed healthy and strong. And because he had to go on dialysis, his body just weakened and he just looked really frail over time. And because of his dialysis treatment, he had to have, the same vein was being used to do his treatments. And so over time, his arm started to look deformed, right? So it was swollen, and all of that then started to impact his how he felt about himself. Yeah. And then he was feeling depressed and all of that. And so he developed other medical problems. He had hypertension. So then that somehow led to heart failure. So my friend had a lot of ailments to deal with. And the beauty about his situation is he was supposed to, if you were to check with like his friend, was an EMT or is an EMT or was an EMT at the time. And he was like very concerned that he wasn't going to live long after being diagnosed. And so where it was expected that he would probably last for about 7 years at most, he lived 18, close to 20 years with renal failure, with heart failure, or kidney failure with the renal failure, and hypertension for almost 20 years. So, with that,
Wow.
I just look at it as him being like a walking miracle, because God was doing a lot of things. Like when you're dealing with kidney failure, it weakens your bone. It weakens a whole lot, but your bones become fragile. And so, over the course of time, he fell once, twice actually, and broke his ankles. So, but we were amazed, as I share in the book, how quickly he healed. Like he was like, I don't want to be in a boot for, let's say, 6 months, whatever the time frame was, or 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it was. He was like, I don't want to be in a boot that long. And so we were like, well, I was like, because I was the prayer warrior with his situation. I was like, well, let's just pray on it. And so the next time we went for a checkup, his bones were healed. You know what I mean? When we went, he had a broken ankle. And even with that, when he told me that his ankle was swollen and I felt that he had broken his ankle, he was like, no, I don't think that's what it is. I said, George, you need to go get it checked out. And he didn't want to do that even then. And then when the pain became too painful for him, that's when he said, yes, can you take me? Because he couldn't drive himself because his ankle was too swollen to even hit the brakes or the gas. So I drove him there, and then we went for like another follow-up like 9 days later. And when we looked again, when we went back, the doctor had x-rays done, and he was just doing a comparison. He was looking at one, and he was looking at the next, and he kept going back and forth, looking at it. And we were like, what is he looking at? And he was like, you are a lucky man, because your bones have healed within 9 days. So George went through a lot. And the reason why I decided to share his story is because it was just phenomenal. It was a roller coaster. Having to take him to dialysis, or having to take him to the hospitals whenever he had episodes where we thought he was going to die. Okay. So I share his story because I want Black men in particular to pay attention to their health. We all should do this anyway, but for the amount of times that he ignored the pains, for the amount of times that he shared with me that he was in pain or he felt something was wrong, and I would say to him, go get it checked, and he wouldn't. I want Black men to pay attention to the aches and the pains and everything that they feel inside their bodies, and not ignore it to the point where it develops into cancer, it develops into heart failure, kidney disease, and all of that stuff. So that was the longest chapter in my book. That's probably it is the most emotional chapter in my book. From people who've read it, it's the most captivating chapter throughout the book. But I wanted to tell his story because it is important. And I just want men to do better in the care of their health.
Yeah. Especially men and that are head of household, because they have to work, because they have to take care of the family. And it's the norm with men. I'm not going to say just Black men, but men. And, me being in the healthcare field have seen where men have aches, pain, they will ignore it because they have to work. They're the head of household. They have to take care of family. And then it's even to the point where when they come into the hospital and the doctor say, well, your chest pain was a little bit more. We have to keep you over. The thought is, well, wait a minute. I can't stay overnight because I have to go to work in the morning. I have a family to take care of. So the thought is about taking care of their family. And it's like the health part is tertiary to what's going on, because their thought is, if I don't work, I don't bring in a check, and I can't take care of my family, I can't pay, keep a roof over my family here and I can't put food on the table. So that's fine with men, period. Because of that they ignore their health, because especially if they're a head of household. So that's men general. But again, it's as far as like the heart attacks, heart failure, diabetes, kidney issue is, if my statistic is correctly, but it's prevalent in Black men.
Yeah. And when you listen to the news per se, and they give like the comparison between African Americans and other races, we're always the ones that's more severe, whether it's in being a diabetic or having heart attacks or whatever. It's always us being the ones that are impacted the most, because we're not eating properly. A lot of the times we're not exercising. We're not doing a whole lot of things to help our health. And so at some point in time, we have to get serious. And I'm speaking to myself right now because I'm a little overweight myself per my doctors. And so we all can stand to do better when it comes to our health. You see what I'm saying? We need to be more active. We need to drink a lot of water, eat more greens. And so I'm trying to implement a lot of that in my own diet as well, but it's just, we just really have to do better overall.
And then also having access to food. So I know a lot of times in the impoverished communities that we don't have access to the fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. We only have access to the glory canned string beans. I mean, they good, don't get me wrong, but it's the processed food that we have access to because it's cheaper. So that's another thing. So if you're in the impoverished neighborhood, you can't afford the high quality food because of access and money for it. So it's always the processed food that is cheaper. So that's another.
I think.
I'm sorry.
I think though that with the pandemic and everything, I think that they may have like food banks now that can really help folks who are, oh my God, forgive me, who are impoverished. So basically, I'm sorry. So basically, I think that there are food banks and things along those lines that can help folks who may not be able to afford some of the, just aren't able to afford some foods or what have you. Some states, I would like to think that quite a few states may have food banks that can accommodate fresh fruits and produce and things of that nature for those who are in lower income homes. I wanted to say something else.
And convenience.
Say that again?
Also convenience, Andrea, because I know me, convenience. Also because I'm guilty, me working night shift, it's easier for me to grab something on the way to work, and I work overnight. So sometimes if I work 3/12s a night, I get off in the morning and I don't have time or the energy to cook. So my thought is, on the way to work, I'll grab something, and usually it's the McDonald's or, oh my God, my favorite, the Chick-fil-A or something, which is not healthier because it's just quick. So that's another thing, convenience. It's a convenience also.
It's true. I listen. I am guilty of hitting up a Chick-fil-A. I know they have them laced all throughout the DMV. Not so much now that I'm in Connecticut. I would probably have to drive quite a few miles to get to a Chick-fil-A. But even with that, I mean, we still have to be cognizant of what we are ingesting. You see what I'm saying? We just have to do better. That's it.
Yeah.
There's a Burger King right down the road, and I'm like, I'm not gonna pull up in that drive-through. Huh? I didn't hear you.
And you have to be cognizant of what in your mouth. You have to be cognizant of what you're putting in your mouth. What are you putting in your mouth?
Absolutely.
Yeah, what are you
putting
in your mouth?
I don't know who said it, but
Yeah.
I heard someone say that we are what we eat. So here lately, in this household, we've been eating a lot of vegetables, and yes, so I'm happy about that. So a lot of vegetables with protein, and I'm gonna incorporate some walking. I'm gonna start slowly, but I know I have to take care of my health. Because we're not getting any younger. You see what I'm saying? We are of a certain age, right? Well, I'm speaking about myself. I'm of a certain age, and I need to make sure that I'm not trying to get on any meds if I don't have to. I don't want to pop any pills. So right now in my mind, now is the time for me to do whatever is necessary to be in the best health, the best shape as possible. So yeah, we need to take our health more seriously.
Fruits and vegetables.
Yep.
So when we were talking about, so I read an article, and I'm gonna butcher this person's name, and I'm gonna apologize, but I started an entrepreneur, and it's by Dr. Sophia Onoa, and I do apologize.
Yeah.
I'm not one for names. I'll butcher a name, but it was interesting. It says, what Chadwick Boseman's death tell us about workplace healthcare? And then it just says, it was very interesting to me. It just says, too often, the pressures of capitalism makes the workplace a toxic environment for those diagnosed with cancer, especially Black people. So I know that in the end, with Chadwick Boseman, he worked up until his death, and no one knew that he had cancer. So he's the example, like your friend George, that had to work, had to get things done. I don't want to say Chadwick ignored his health, but I know the public didn't know about it, but he worked up until his last days. And it was unfortunate that when people saw him, they thought, the first thing is said that the first thing they thought was, oh, he's on drugs. And that wasn't the case at all. He was suffering from stomach cancer. But it says the survival of the fittest is not just a Darwinism evolutionary theory. It's the simple fact that capitalism, which the United States is a capitalist country, at its core favors the best and the brightest. The abrupt death of the great actor Chadwick Boseman revealed that he had been privately battling, here it is, colon cancer for the past 4 years. Of note, colorectal cancers are the third leading cause of cancer death in the U.S. So that is aligned with your friend George, that he, Chadwick had cancer for 4 years and no one knew about it, and he just continued to be a workhorse. And privately, he dealt with the diagnosis. I mean, I don't know if he ignored the signs, but I know the public did not know that he had colorectal cancer, but he dealt with it privately. But he just continued to work.
Yeah.
So, this article is just states it.
Well,
and it just says cancer mortality rate is. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so basically, I the other night stumbled across the TV show Reels, where there's a medical doctor who examines and he investigates the cause of what caused a person's death. And they had Chadwick Boseman on. And we all know, he basically, for one, he's a Howard alum. HU. So we're proud of that.
Yes.
But the fact that he was so dedicated to his craft, the fact that he changed the perception of Black men being superhero, like he became a Black superhero for Black and brown babies. That was just, his legacy is going to live on as our king. You know what I mean? So his work, all the movies he played in, and they were all wonderful. The roles that he played, James Brown and I think Jackie Robinson, he was just a phenomenal actor. But what happened is, just going based off of the TV show, he was so dedicated to his craft that even if he felt something was wrong, I think he did like George. I'll be okay. I'll just push through. It'll be all right. It's not as serious as it may appear. And so you keep pushing it under the rug until it gets to a place where it just becomes explosive and your body shuts down and your body just starts to let you know enough. And by that time, it's too late. And so that was the case with him, was that by the time, well, I'm going based off of the TV show, because I'm not a doctor and I'm not his doctor, but by the time he probably took it serious, it was too late, because this cancer now is spreading throughout your body, and it's just inevitable that you're going to die. You know what I mean? And what a treasure we lost in him. You see what I'm saying? Because we were all looking for another Black Panther and another Black Panther, and seeing him, do his greatness. But nonetheless, we're thankful for the roles that he played. And as a result of his death, it's brought so much attention to colon cancer in Black men. And I would like to think that it's causing, or that it did cause, a lot of Black men to say, wow, let me go and get myself checked out. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's the good thing to come out of the situation, is that he became this great figure. And this great figure brought to light a very serious cancer that shouldn't be overlooked in our community.
Whenever you have pain, so this is the thing. Whenever you have pain, if you didn't sprain your ankle or anything, but if you have pain, that means something isn't right. So you need to go get it checked out. So if it's not from exercise or you hit your hand, but if you have pain and it's even acute or chronic, that means something is wrong and you need to go get it checked out. I tell everyone that, especially when they come into the hospital. If there's something, you have a headache, it's not something that should be overlooked. Either you could be dehydrated, drink some water, and if it doesn't go away, investigate what's wrong, And because I know that I lost my mom from stomach cancer, and it started, she described it as a gnawing pain in her stomach, and she just thought it was indigestion. And then come to find out it was stomach cancer. So, she was taking Tums. She was taking, the doctor gave her something called sucralfate, if I'm saying it correctly. Yeah, sucralfate, where it coats the stomach. and she just thought that they thought that she had peptic ulcer disease from stress, and that's what it was, stress. And but come to find out, it was stomach cancer, and they had to take part of her stomach out.
Wow.
So pretty much that's what it is. I think that Chadwick Boseman is just a good example of paying attention to your body, and if something is wrong, it's worth getting investigating, seeing what it is, and it may come back that it's nothing. Yeah. And I mean, and I'm guilty as well, because I just keep working and keep working. I'm sorry?
Yeah. I think that word stress is a very important word, because we don't realize how much stress contributes to cancers and other ailments. And that was one of the things that they talked about, was Chadwick's level of stress. Like, prior to becoming this big, the king of Wakanda and everything like that, and getting these great roles, you're pounding the pavement, and so you're like a struggling actor. You're trying to get this deal, and so while you're going through that process, that's a lot of stress, because you don't know where your next meal is coming from. You don't know when you're really going to catch that break. And so, yes, he was going through a great deal of stress. And even, I'm pretty sure too, because he was so dedicated to his craft, that I don't know if he was like a perfectionist, but when you're that dedicated, you're trying to make sure that things come off the way that they should. And so you're going to continue to do whatever you need to do to get it to be well presented or well received. You're trying to make that movie the best movie possible. You're trying to represent a Jackie Robinson. You're trying to represent James Brown, and you're trying to pull it off. So there is that level of pressure to hit it on the nail. You see what I'm saying? And so they talked about his stress level as well. Okay? The stress level.
Yeah.
Managing our stress level is so important. That part we need to also not neglect.
Yeah, that part. Mm-hmm. But then also, and I know that you can attest to this, I know that when I went to Howard, it was always, we was always groomed to be competitive. And because I know a lot of times people were like, why are you so competitive? There's no need to be competitive, but I was always taught that you needed to be the best of the best. And even the high school that I went to, because I never, Mr. Ball was like, you girls are so competitive, because as soon as you get your grades back, you're looking over like, well, what did you get on your exam? And I know on my girlfriend deal, she would get something, I would get something. And then I'd be like, dang, she got a 92, I got an 88. And then I'm sitting there like, okay, I got to study harder. That's that competitive nature. That's stress within itself. That's stress. To be the best, to be among the best, even now, is stress. That, okay, you got this to do in order to hit your numbers. It's a competitive stress. That's a stress within itself. To be, it is. To be good at what you're doing, that's stress. It's just stress.
Because we were taught.
And that's huge.
That. Yeah, I'm sorry. We were taught that, though. We were taught that we had to be 10 times. We had to work 10 times harder to keep up with our white counterparts. That's just it. You have to work harder. And even in doing that, you're probably not going to, be on the same playing field. You see what I'm saying? So listen, Howard was a great experience, but yes, there was stress behind it for sure. And I can only imagine that's the case at other universities as well. There's stress that you go through. Listen, just going through the registration line at Howard University, that is stressful. As we can relate to standing in long registration lines freshman year, sophomore year, trying to get our classes and everything like that, or getting validated, getting the good grades to be on the dean's list, and all of that. And like you were saying before, me, I was a nerd, but I was a cool nerd. You know what I'm saying? I strive to get nothing but good grades all throughout. Oh, that was me before Howard, though. Things changed once I got to Howard.
Oh, okay.
So
that wasn't me.
But it was very stressful nonetheless, just trying to keep up with your classes and getting good grades. You see what I'm saying? So we're stressed people. I had to get good grades, like you said, in high school. I was always on the high honor roll. I had to get the A's and the B's, and if I got a B, I wanted an A. You know what I mean? And so I would be upset that I didn't get that A, where, my best friend, she might have gotten a C, and I'm up there mad because I got a B. And she's looking at me like, are you serious right now? Like, you got a B. You should be happy. Like, I got to see it. I wish I had the B. But there's a level of stress that we endure just trying to meet the expectations that we set for ourselves. You know what I mean? And so Chad's expectation was, this movie, I am, and especially because he's a Howard graduate, there's something about being a graduate of Howard University in that we are about excellence. We strive for excellence. And so I can only imagine that being taught in the School of Fine Arts by the wonderful teachers, professors at Howard University, that you want to shine and you want to produce great work and you want to represent Howard and your family and the people that you are portraying in your movies. So yes, I can say I can only imagine the level of stress that he endured to be the great Chadwick Boseman. Because we're so proud of him, even in his death. We are proud of him. I believe he died a day after George, last year? So his death date was August 28th, and George died on the 27th of August. So at the end of the day, manage your health, your stress levels, pay attention to your body, because it speaks. It's speaking to you whenever you feel an ache or pain. Listen, George started off, and it's crazy. I'm going back and forth. George and I this is how we knew that he was in medical distress. We went to a housewarming, and he and I share this in the book, he and I always felt we were the life of the party. Listen, the party was being him. So once we got together, we knew we were going to have fun because we were together. And that particular day, he sat on the couch, and I was like, why are you sitting on the couch by yourself like this? And he started to tell me, well, his ankles were swollen and he couldn't even tie his Timberland boots.
Wow.
And so I came in, my ankles were swollen too. But that was because I was working my part-time gig at Macy's, which I loved at the time because I'm a lover of makeup and everything that's pretty and smells good. And so we both sat on the couch together and we were laughing at each other because we both had swollen ankles. Mine was because I worked. I was standing on my feet all day, but I wasn't in medical distress. We're laughing and making fun of each other because we can't be the life of the party. We can't laugh and dance and do what everybody else was doing because our ankles were swollen. I didn't know he was in distress. He had no idea. But his friend who was an EMT was like, something does not look right. And you need to go to the hospital. In fact, he drove himself to the hospital and then they admitted him and he was in ICU. They were like, he is in renal failure and we cannot release him. Yeah. So I'm going to pause there because I was feeling a little something coming up and I'm not trying to be in tear mode. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But just pay attention to the swellings, to any lumps, any bruising, any itching, anything that causes your body to be in pain. Just go get it checked out.
Yeah.
George should have still been here with me. Yeah, he would have been, he's 5 years old. Yeah, he would have been about 57 today. And, just the other day, there are certain times when you just want to talk to a particular person. And the other day I was like, oh, I want to talk to George. And it hit me, he's not here. I can't call him anymore. You know what I'm saying? So I just say for those men and women, just think about the people who love you. If you won't do it for yourself, do it for your wife, your kids, do it for them, because it's very painful having to go through the loss of a loved one. It's very difficult. It's like you through a range of emotions. It's, some days you're okay, and other days you're like, I thought I was good, and the floodgates open up again. And, so just take care of your health.
Yeah, because I know my knees started hurting. My doctor was like, lose some weight first. Lose some weight. And I was like, okay. It's like, that 15 extra pounds isn't for your frame. Yeah, he was like, start there, Paige. He was like, that Chick-fil-A is starting to add up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because at first, like, I have a left
that you're busy.
Say it again.
I'm listening.
I can't hear you.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying
I said, go ahead.
I was saying I agree with you about the knee. At first it was just my left knee, but now I feel both knees are hurting. So that's how I know, like what you were saying, my frame isn't built for the extra weight that I have on me. And I carry my weight well. Like, folks, when I tell them how much I weigh, they're like, you lying. Andrew, you lying. Yeah, but when I tell them how much I weigh, my weight is mainly in my stomach. Like, folks they look at me and they're like, you are not that. And I'm like, I am. And it all settles in my gut. So I don't have time for the knee aches. I don't want the knee aches. And like I was saying earlier, I don't want to have to pop pills or any of that when I'm in my 60s, 70s. I want to be healthy. And so I'm taking charge of my health now.
Well, walking more and eating more green leafy vegetables, no fried fatty foods, low salt intake, more water is better.
Yep.
So that's pretty much the key. So in proportions also. So you can still eat what you want to eat, but it's in proportion. So, the protein, the vegetables, the fruit, and sometimes you have to be careful with the fruit because there's a lot of sugar in it. Yeah. But just green leafy vegetables are very good for you, and low salt intake and more water. But I want to just thank, you for this conversation. It was very enlightening. And then hopefully the guests find that these conversations that we're having is enlightening. So, Andrea, before we wrap up, where can viewers get the book?
Oh, it's on Amazon. It's on Amazon right now. I'm getting ready to upload it to Ingram Spark so that it can be available on other platforms as well. So definitely it's on Amazon. It's in the ebook format and in paperback. $19.99. So it's a good read. So I highly encourage you to pick it up and give it to a friend as a gift. It's enjoyable. They'll enjoy it.
Okay, and then if they want to reach out to you, where can you be? Where can they find you online?
Okay, well, I do have a website. The name of my company is called Proofreading Inc. So you spell proof like you normally would, like proofreading, but instead of READ, you're going to insert my last name. So it's Proof, REIDING, Inc. .com. And then you can also find me on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, again, Proofreading Inc. And you should be able to pull me up that way. And I also have a personal Instagram page, Andrea L. Reid _ author as well. And
okay,
that's it.
great. So again, well, thank you everyone. That's it. So, well, thank you everyone for tuning in. And please be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Leading Ladies _ podcast, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel at Leading Ladies of the Past and Present Future for a recap of this live interview with myself and Andrea L. Reid. So, good night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.